There are things a man knows about his grandchildren that the world has not yet caught up to. He knows which one wakes up afraid, and which one sleeps through a thunderstorm without flinching. He knows the specific weight of a 7-year-old who has decided she is too old to be carried, but will still lean against your arm in the car without saying anything about it, just leaning quietly, hoping you do not remark on it. He knows which one needs silence when he is disappointed, and which one needs to be heard all the way through before the disappointment will pass. He knows which one pretends not to care about being praised, and which one will look at you sideways for 3 days if you forget to say something. He knows what each of them is working on inside themselves, the private projects that have nothing to do with school or sports or whatever any adult thinks they should be focused on. I am not a sentimental man about most things. There are a fair number of things I do not miss, and a fair number of feelings I have made my peace with not having. But grandchildren are the one exception I have never felt the need to defend or explain to anyone who has ever asked. My name is Gerald Ashworth. I am 47 years old. I worked 22 years for the County Parks Department, maintenance first, then project coordination, then a supervisory role that involved more conference room time than I ever wanted and enough outdoor work to keep me from losing my mind about the conference room time. About 3 years ago, I left and took a position with a landscape contractor named Brock Halloway out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Brock runs a small commercial and residential operation, good crew, honest books, the kind of business where people stay for 15 years and nobody is surprised by that. I handle site assessments and project management on the larger installs, retaining walls, grading, irrigation design, the occasional large-scale planning plan for a commercial property. It is not a glamorous occupation. It is honest work done outside in the weather, and I have never once driven to a job site wishing I were somewhere else. I know how to build raised garden beds. I know what soil needs and why. I know how long it takes a 10-year-old boy and his 9-year-old sister to drag a 40-pound bag of cedar mulch across a school courtyard when they are doing it properly, which is to say slowly together without dropping it and without one of them letting the other carry more than half. My grandchildren's names are Owen and Lily. They are my son Kevin's kids. And for 4 months last fall and winter, from the last week of September through the third Saturday of January, Owen and Lily Ashworth helped me build a raised garden bed program at Clover Ridge Elementary School in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 14 Saturday mornings. 340 miles of driving on my end, round trips from my house in Laverne. Every hour of it worth what it cost. I want you to understand something before I tell you what happened. This was not my idea in the way that most things are someone's idea, meaning I did not sit down and decide to pursue it. The school had reached out to Brock's company in late summer, looking for someone who could volunteer some time advising on an outdoor learning initiative. Raised beds, composting basics, whatever a working landscape professional could bring. Brock mentioned my name. I called the principal, a woman named Dr. Sandra Hooper, and we talked for 45 minutes on a Tuesday afternoon in late August. She was specific about what the school needed and realistic about what they had the budget and capacity to manage. By the end of the call, I had agreed to come in every other Saturday morning, help design 2 raised planting beds, source the lumber at cost through Brock's supplier, and work with whatever students the school wanted to involve. Dr. Hooper said she had 2 grandchildren of a staff member who had expressed interest. I said that sounded fine. Then I called Owen. He was 10. He said yes before I had finished describing what we would actually be doing. Lily, 9 at the time, asked 2 clarifying questions about the herb section, and then said she wanted to be in charge of it. I said that was more than fine. Intro CTA, not counted in word total. Welcome to Quiet House Stories. Get comfortable and remember the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you're going to love it here. From the last Saturday of September to the third Saturday of January, 16 Saturdays scheduled, 2 rained out, 14 actual work mornings completed. Owen and Lily showed up at Clover Ridge Elementary at 9 a.m., and we worked until noon. We built 2 cedar-framed raised beds, 4 feet by 8 feet each, framed in 2-inch select cedar from a supplier in Smyrna, who cut us a deal because Brock had been giving him consistent business for 11 years. We amended the soil with compost we picked up from the county facility on Hazel Dell Road, 40-pound bags. 12 bags total across the 2 beds, which Owen and I carried and Lily directed with the seriousness of someone who has thought carefully about placement. We planted a winter herb section in the first bed, rosemary, sage, thyme, 2 varieties of parsley, and a spring vegetable section in the second, which we seeded in January and would not see come up until March. Owen kept a composition notebook where he drew the planting layout in pencil, rows labeled by plant type, measurements recorded in inches, a small legend in the bottom right corner of each page identifying what had been planted when. The handwriting was not beautiful. The precision was. He corrected himself without being asked and without making a production of it. He would flip back through earlier pages to check what he had written, and then update the current page, methodical, unhurried. Lily decided early on that the herbs section needed a small hand-painted wooden sign that said Lily's Corner in red letters on a white painted board. She cut herself from a scrap cedar piece. Under my supervision, with a jigsaw, she painted herself. 3 coats of red acrylic, allowed to dry between each coat without being told to wait. When we mounted it on the cedar frame corner, she stood back and looked at it for a long moment and then said it needed a border. I said it looked fine to me. She said she had not asked if it looked fine. She said it needed a border. We painted a border, and she was right. It looked better with the border. On Saturday, January 18th, the last official work morning of the program, Dr. Hooper came outside with a camera and took photographs of Owen and Lily kneeling next to both completed beds with their hands in the soil. She said the school was planning a spring recognition night in March to celebrate student projects and service contributions from the school year. She said Owen and Lily would absolutely be honored at the event, that she was looking forward to recognizing what they had done. She thanked me specifically for the time I had put in and the materials I had sourced. I shook her hand, helped the kids load the leftover tools into my 2018 Ford F-150, and we drove to a diner on Medical Center Parkway for lunch. Owen had a grilled cheese. Lily had chicken tenders and a lemonade that she informed me was not sour enough. It was a good Saturday. One of the better ones I can remember recently, and I can remember a fair number of good Saturdays. Here is where it gets complicated. My son Kevin is 31 years old. He works in regional sales for a medical supply distributor, and he is, on most days, a decent man. He does not always notice the things happening directly in front of him, which is not a character defect, so much as a particular variety of being too busy inside his own head to look outward with any consistency. Most people have some version of that problem. I have never held it against Kevin the way some fathers might, because I was not much different at 31, and I have no business acting otherwise. He married a woman named Renata 4 years ago. Renata is organized. She is organized the way that some people are organized when organization has become the primary language through which they understand the world. She runs the household calendar. She coordinates the school's parent committee meeting schedule. She sent a 750-word group email in November about a Thanksgiving food drive she put together. A food drive that was, by any fair measurement, a success. She is capable, and she works hard at the things she has decided to work hard at. I am not here to argue otherwise. What I am here to say is this. When Dr. Hooper's Spring Recognition Night became a real, scheduled event, Friday evening, March 14th, the school gymnasium, families invited, Renata offered to handle the seating and program coordination for the family section. Dr. Hooper runs a school of 347 students and does not have the time or the inclination to object to someone offering to handle a logistics detail voluntarily. She said yes. Kevin mentioned it to me on a Sunday in early March. In the way you mentioned something you're not thinking very hard about. He said Renata was helping put the program together for recognition night. Wasn't that nice? I said yes, that was nice. I asked if he had confirmed seats for the kids' family in the seating section. He said Renata had it handled. I said all right and left it there. Renata had it handled. On Friday, March 14th, I drove to Clover Ridge Elementary and parked in the east lot at 6:43 p.m. I walked into the gymnasium at 6:50, 15 minutes before the program was set to begin. The family seating area was arranged in 4 rows of folding chairs facing a small stage with a podium and a blue banner that read Spring Recognition Night. Clover Ridge Elementary in clean white lettering. The first row had reserved seats. little cardstock name placards, printed in a clean serif font, resting on each chair seat. I walked the first row and read the names. Renata's mother, a woman named Doris Pellegrino who had driven in from Nashville, had a placard in the center left seat. Renata's sister had 2 seats to the right. 2 family friends of Renata's, whose names I did not recognize, had placards on the far right end of the row. Kevin had a placard next to Renata's. Renata's placard was at the aisle seat nearest the stage. I walked to the back of the room. The 4th row, the last row, had 2 seats with small printed slips of paper tucked under the chair legs. Not placed on the seats the way the front row cards had been, but tucked underneath, face down, the way you tuck something when you did it last and did not think too carefully about what it communicates. I crouched down and turned one over. Owen Ashworth's family. I turned over the other. Lily Ashworth's family. That was a seating arrangement at a ceremony specifically honoring my grandchildren's 4 months of work for my grandchildren's family. I found an open chair in the 3rd row, and I sat down in it. I am not a dramatic man. I don't make speeches. I don't slam doors. I don't require a scene in order to register something or respond to it. I sat in the 3rd row and I watched the program, and I kept my face the same as it always is. Dr. Hooper spoke for 8 minutes. She was warm and specific. She named each student contribution clearly, gave it genuine context, made it feel like what it actually was. When she got to Owen and Lily, she said their names without hesitation. Said they had worked for 4 months alongside a skilled community volunteer to complete a project that would support the school's outdoor science curriculum for years to come. Owen and Lily walked to the stage, and Dr. Hooper handed each of them a folded certificate of recognition printed on cream cardstock. Owen shook her hand with both hands the way I had taught him to shake a hand. Lily held her certificate carefully with both of hers and looked down at it for a moment, reading it, before she turned and walked back to the last row of the room to take her seat. I drove home at 8:22 p.m. I poured a cup of coffee from the pot I had made that morning, which had gone cold. I sat at the kitchen table with it and with a manila folder I had been using for a separate estimate, a retaining wall job in Smyrna, and I moved the folder to the side and just sat there with the cold coffee and the quiet house and thought about a composition notebook and a hand-painted sign and 2 slips of paper tucked face down under chair legs in the last row of a school gymnasium. Some men spend a long time waiting to feel angry. I have found, over 47 years, that anger is actually a quick thing. It arrives clean and it arrives fast. What takes time, careful time, considered time, is a decision about what to do with it. Anger that you act on in the first hour is almost never the right response. Anger that you sit with until the coffee goes cold and then act on deliberately, that is a different matter entirely. I made my decision before the mug was empty. I picked up my phone at 9:03 p.m. and I made 6 calls. The first was to Dr. Sandra Hooper. I did not expect her to answer at 9:03 on a Friday evening. She answered on the 3rd ring and sounded alert, the way principals sound when they have trained themselves to stay switched on for parents who need to reach them outside business hours. I introduced myself clearly, Gerald Ashworth, the volunteer, Owen and Lily's grandfather, and she said she remembered me well. I told her I had an idea I wanted to run by her and asked if she had 15 minutes that week. She said she had 30 minutes Monday morning at 8 a.m. if I want to come in. I said I would be there. The second call was to my friend Ray Delacroix. Ray is 61, retired county parks, and he runs a community gardening nonprofit out of a building on Church Street in downtown Murfreesboro. He works with a photographer named Miriam Holt who documents garden projects for grant reports and community publications. I asked Ray if Miriam took private event work. He said he thought she did. I said I needed her available on a Saturday morning in 2 weeks, 9 to noon, for a ceremony I was putting together for 2 kids who deserved one. Ray was quiet for a moment. Then he said he would make the call and let me know. The third call was to my neighbor Margaret Voss, who has spent 31 years in the county school system and knows every administrator in Rutherford County on a first-name basis. The kind of professional currency that most people do not think to maintain, but that turns out to matter enormously when you need something done on a short timeline. I asked if she knew anyone at the Murfreesboro Daily News who covered community interest pieces. She said she knew the lifestyle editor, Carol Briggs, and that Carol was reliably looking for spring community stories. She said she would send an email that night. The fourth call was to my brother Dennis. He is 54 and retired Army. He said, "What do you need?" I said, I needed someone who could set up 40 folding chairs in a backyard without making a project out of it. He said that was an unusual thing to ask for at 9:30 on a Friday. I said I knew. He said he would be there. The fifth call was to Owen. It was 9:31 p.m., which is later than I would normally call a 10-year-old on a school night, but Kevin lets the kids stay up until 9:45 on Fridays, and I knew Owen would still be awake. He picked up on the second ring. I said his name. He said, "Hey, Grandpa." I told him I had seen him shake Dr. Hooper's hand at the ceremony, and that I had been proud of him. He was quiet for a moment in the way he gets when something is landing. Then he said, "We worked pretty hard on that garden." I said I knew that. I told him I had an idea I wanted to run by him, and asked what he thought Lily would say about it. I told him the idea. There was a pause, for seconds, maybe 5, long enough that I knew he was thinking about it rather than just reacting. Then he said, Yeah, I think she would want to do that." The sixth call was to Beverly Holt, who has been my contact at the Rutherford County Cooperative Extension Office for 6 years on a series of grant-supported landscape and garden projects. Beverly coordinates agricultural education programs for the county and carries institutional authority that means something when she puts a state-level seal on a document. I asked if the Clover Ridge garden beds qualify for the Extension Office's Spring Youth Recognition Series. She said she would check the criteria. She called me back on Sunday afternoon at 4:47 p.m. to say they qualified without question and that she would be glad to present the certificates in person. I was in Dr. Hooper's office at 7:58 a.m. on Monday, March 17th. She arrived exactly at 8 o'clock, and we sat across from each other, and I told her what I was planning. I told her I wanted to host a garden recognition event in my backyard on Saturday, April 5th, a proper ceremony, chair setup, event structure for Owen and Lily and anyone from the school community who had supported the project. I told her Beverly Holt from the Cooperative Extension Office would present framed recognition certificates carrying the county program seal and state signature. I told her Miriam Holt would be documenting the event photographically for potential inclusion in the Extension's annual community report. I told her the lifestyle editor at the Murfreesboro Daily News had expressed interest in sending a reporter and photographer. Dr. Hooper sat back in her chair and looked at me for a moment. Then she said, "Mr. Ashworth, I owe you an apology for Friday evening." I said I was not certain she owed me personally anything, but that I appreciated the thought. She said the seating arrangement had not gone through her. She said she had not known about it until she was already on stage and could not do anything about it from there. She said she would like to attend the April 5th event if the invitation was open. I said the invitation was open to anyone who had ever shown up for these kids. That Monday afternoon, I called Kevin and told him what I had put together. I said I was hosting a small outdoor ceremony at my house on April 5th, that it was a recognition event for Owen and Lily, and that he and his family were welcome to attend. 10 o'clock in the morning, food afterward. Kevin said that sounded great. He said he would tell Renata. I said, please do. The 2 weeks between that Monday and Saturday, April 5th, were, in terms of pure planning satisfaction, among the better 2-week stretches I have had in recent memory. Dennis came over Wednesday evening, and we measured the backyard and sketched out the chair layout on a piece of graph paper at the kitchen table. I ordered 40 folding chairs from a rental company on South Church Street with Friday morning delivery. Margaret Voss offered her folding tables, and I accepted without hesitation. Ray Delacroix confirmed Miriam Holt for 9:30 Saturday. Beverly Holt confirmed 9:45 arrival with the framed certificates in a leather portfolio. Carol Briggs from the Murfreesboro Daily News called me Thursday, March 27th, and said she was sending a reporter and a photographer. I told her the event started at 10, and there would be food served after. One evening during that week, Thursday, March 27th, around 8 o'clock, I was in the garage straightening up the tools Owen and Lily had used during our Saturday mornings. I had kept them separate from the rest of my storage, on a lower shelf near the workbench where the kids could reach without climbing. 2 pairs of small leatherwork gloves sat on that shelf, 1 pair for each of them, that I had bought at Tractor Supply back in September for $7.49 a pair. Owen's pair had a small tear along the right thumb seam, where he had caught the glove on a corner of the cedar frame one November morning. He had held up his hand and looked at the tear, then looked at me. I had said, "That's what gloves are for. That's how you know you actually worked." He had nodded in the serious, filing it away way he nods when something is going in a notebook that lives inside his head rather than the one he carries in his back pocket. I stood in the garage and picked up Owen's glove. I stood there under the fluorescent light, looking at the torn seam and thinking about 14 Saturday mornings. I thought about 40-pound bags of compost and pencil-drawn planting charts and a painted sign with a border she had been right to insist on. I thought about 2 slips of paper tucked face down under chair legs in the last row of a school gymnasium, in a serif font that matched the front row placards exactly, which is a kind of detail that only matters if you understand what it means for a child to notice those things and say nothing about it because they do not want to make trouble for the adults around them. Not every injustice is large or loud. Some of them are small and folding chair sized, and they arrive in clean typography on cardstock, and they land on a child who is 9 years old and standing up straight, holding a cream certificate, and walking back to the last row of the room, because that is where they have been placed. They are not less real for being small. In some ways, they are more real, because small things done quietly to children tend to stay in those children a long time before anyone thinks to look for them. I set the glove back on the shelf. I turned off the fluorescent light and went inside and made myself a cup of chamomile tea. Steeped 4 minutes exactly, and I sat at the kitchen table with it until it was gone, and the kitchen was still, and I had finished thinking about everything I needed to finish thinking about. Saturday, April 5th came in cool and clear the way early April sometimes does in Middle Tennessee when the weather decides to cooperate. The chairs were set in 4 rows of 10 in the backyard, and the first 2 rows had reserved seats. I had made the placards at the Staples on Memorial Boulevard Thursday afternoon. Cardstock, the same clean serif font that had been used in the school gymnasium, which was not an accident, which I did not mention to anyone. Owen's placard was in the first chair of the first row, center left. Lily's was directly next to his. Beverly Holt arrived at 9:44 a.m. with a leather portfolio containing 2 framed certificates from the Rutherford County Cooperative Extension Office, each with a Tennessee State Program seal, Beverly's director-level signature, and a citation naming the project, the school, and each child by full name. Miriam Holt arrived at 9:52 with her camera and a second lens. At 9:58, a reporter from a Murfreesboro Daily News named Patrick Sears came through the side gate with a small spiral notebook and a press lanyard. At 10:03, Dr. Sandra Hooper arrived with 3 members of the school's outdoor science teaching staff who had been using the bed in classroom lessons since October. Kevin came through the side gate at 10:09 with Owen, Lily, and Renata. I was near the back fence talking to Dennis when I heard the gate latch. Owen stopped walking the moment he saw the setup. He stood completely still and looked at the chairs, at the food tables along the fence, at the banner Dennis and I had hung between 2 fence posts the night before, lettered on white butcher paper in dark blue paint, reading Clover Ridge Garden, Spring Recognition. He found the first row of chairs. He found his placard in the first seat. He found Lily's next to it. Lily walked directly to the first row without stopping, sat down in her seat, straightened her placard so it faced forward precisely, and folded her hands in her lap and waited. Renata stopped near the gate. She looked at the chairs arranged in the yard, at the woman with the camera checking her lens, at the young man in the press lanyard opening his notebook, at Dr. Hooper standing near the certificates table talking with Beverly Holt. I watched her take inventory of the room. I watched her understand, piece by piece and in no particular hurry, what she was standing inside. I walked to Kevin and shook his hand. He looked at me and said, "Dad, what did you do?" I said, "I made a few phone calls." Beverly Holt spoke for 6 minutes. She explained the history and purpose of the County Cooperative Extension's Youth Agricultural Recognition Program, and then she opened the leather portfolio and read each certificate aloud before presenting it. Owen James Ashworth, for sustained contribution to educational garden development at Clover Ridge Elementary School, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, September 2024 through January 2025. Lily Grace Ashworth, same citation, same seal, the same official weight. Owen stood up straight when his name was called. He walked to Beverly and received the framed certificate the way he had shaken Dr. Hooper's hand, correctly, carefully, with both hands. Lily received hers the way she had received the cream cardstock one on March 14th, with both hands and her eyes down for a moment, reading it. But this time she was in the first row, and Miriam Holt was 10 feet away with camera, and Patrick Sears was writing in his notebook, and 3 teachers who had used Lily's herbs in their science lessons were sitting 4 chairs to her right. Dr. Hooper spoke after Beverly. She said the garden project had changed the practical function of outdoor science at Clover Ridge, that the beds had given teachers something living to bring students to, a project with real continuity, that the kids felt ownership of rather than an abstract lesson delivered in a classroom. She said the school was genuinely grateful. She said it looking at Owen and Lily in the front row. We ate after. Dennis had helped me set up the food table the night before, and I had made a pot roast Friday evening, cornbread in a cast-iron skillet, a green salad, and a pitcher of lemonade I had made with 3 more lemons than any reasonable recipe recommended. Because Lily had told me on more than one occasion that lemonade was never sour enough anywhere she went, and she did not understand why people were so afraid of it. She drank 2 full glasses that morning, and said nothing about the sourness level at all. At 11:47 a.m., Renata found me near the back fence while Kevin was talking with Dr. Hooper, and the kids were showing Patrick Sears a composition notebook Owen had kept during the build. Owen was explaining his planting layout system, pointing to specific pages, and Patrick was writing things down, which Owen was pretending not to be pleased about. Renata came up beside me and stood there for a moment looking at the yard. Then she said, "This was a nice thing you did." The phrasing was considered. Nice thing. Not, "I understand what this is," or what it was for. Not, "I'm sorry about the seating." I looked at her and I said, "These kids worked 4 months on something real. They deserve to be in the front row." She said, "Yes," once, quietly. Then she walked back toward where Kevin was standing. That was the whole conversation. I did not need it to be anything more than that. The piece ran in the Murfreesboro Daily News on Thursday, April 10th. The headline read, "2 Murfreesboro students honored for school garden program." The main photograph showed Owen and Lily standing side by side in my backyard holding their framed certificates, looking at the camera. Miriam Holt had caught them at a moment that was not performed. Owen had one side of his mouth pulled slightly upward the way he does when he is trying not to look pleased about something and is not entirely succeeding. And Lily was looking at the camera with a particular settled steadiness she carries when she has decided something is important and she is going to let herself feel it. There was a quote from Dr. Hooper about the educational value of the program, a quote from Beverly Holt about the Extension Office's youth outreach work in Rutherford County, and one for me at the end, which I had not planned to give, but which Patrick Sears had asked for on his way out the gate. He asked me why I had organized the event. I told him I had wanted the people who did the work to be recognized somewhere they could see it clearly. He printed it without changing a word. The online version of the piece had been shared 43 times in the Murfreesboro Community Facebook group by the following Monday morning. Kevin called me Thursday afternoon. He said Lily's teacher had shown the article to her class that morning. I asked how Lily had taken that. Kevin said she kept her composure for approximately 15 seconds and then cried a little, which he said she was furious about afterward. I said that sounded exactly right, and that he should tell her it was a correct response, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. He laughed. I asked how Renata was. He was quiet for a moment, the careful quiet of someone choosing words rather than running out of them. He said, "She's thinking." I said that seemed fair, and left it there. In the weeks after, I have spent some time thinking about what I actually understand Renata, because I think it is worth being precise about. She is not a cruel person. I want to be clear about that, because cruelty is something specific, and she does not fit it. She is a woman who grew up, I think, inside a belief system where organization and care are the same thing, where if you ran the event and arranged the chairs and coordinated the program, you were the one doing the loving, and everyone else was accounted for. I think she looked at that seating chart and made a series of decisions that felt, from her position, like neutral administrative work. Her mother had come from Nashville and deserved a good seat. Her sister was family. The family friends had come a long way. Kevin was there. The program listed Owen and Lily by name. They were accounted for. The slip of paper tucked under a chair leg in the last row was, To her, logistics, not a message, not a verdict on two children who had spent 14 Saturday mornings working in the rain and the cold building something real with their hands. That is not cruelty. Cruelty knows what it is doing. What Renata did was a quieter thing. The blindness that comes from spending too long inside a system of your own construction, where proximity to the front of the room means closeness to what matters, and where the people who actually did the work are handled by being listed in the program and therefore taken care of. I believe she thought that. I am not certain she has stopped thinking it, but she is thinking about something now, and that is different from before. What I know is that Owen noticed, and Lily noticed. Children always notice these things. They do not always have the language for what they have noticed, and they do not always say anything, because they have usually learned that making adults feel bad about something the adult did is more complicated than just absorbing it. But they notice. The slip of paper under the chair leg lands on a child and sits there quietly. And the only real question is whether there is someone paying enough attention to do something about it before it becomes just another thing the child has learned to carry. It is now the middle of June. The spring vegetable bed at Clover Ridge Elementary came up strong in the third week of April. Tomatoes in 3 varieties, 2 kinds of sweet pepper, basil running green along the south end of the frame, where Lily had told me in October it would do best, because she had looked up which direction that wall faced and how many hours of afternoon light would get. Dr. Hooper sent me a photograph on a Tuesday morning with no message, just the image. Owen is in it, kneeling next to the bed, holding a tomato about the size of a golf ball in both hands, and looking at it rather than at the camera. He is not posing. He is just looking at the thing he helped grow, with the specific attention he gives things he has decided are worth his full attention. I have that photograph printed and taped it inside of my kitchen cabinet, just above the coffee maker, where I see it every morning when I reach for a mug. I have looked at it perhaps 60 mornings in a row at this point, and it has not lost anything. Last Saturday, Lily called me. She calls more often than Owen does, which is not a comparison that reflects badly on either of them. It is simply how they are wired, and asked if we could build another bed. She said there was a stretch of wall along the east side of the schoolyard that got good afternoon light, and she had already gone and looked at it. She had measured the clearance at 62 inches. She had a sketch made in a notebook. She wanted strawberries in the new bed, a second herb section on the north end, and a proper wooden trellis on the east end for something climbing. She had not decided what yet, but she had been thinking about it for 2 weeks and had narrowed it down to 3 options. She had an opinion about each one. I said yes. I said let's plan to start in September, when the heat breaks and the weather becomes reasonable again for people who work outside. She said she wanted a bigger sign this time. I said, however big you want to make it. Here is what I understand at 47 years old about doing a thing right and doing it without announcing it. The work is its own record. You do not have to protect it. You do not have to defend it from the room. You just have to make sure the people who did it get to stand in front of it, in good light, in the front row, where they can see what they made and understand clearly that other people can see it too. That is the whole of it. That is everything this was. It does not fix what the slip of paper under the chair leg does to a 9-year-old. Some of that stays. I know that. But you do what you can with the time you have, and you make sure the next ceremony has their names on the first chair, and you make the lemonade sour enough, and you say yes to the bigger sign. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of Quiet House Stories. I will see you on the next one.